because particularly in Rotary, climate change has been an extremely controversial subject, as we all know. And so I think that that is really one of the most important things that we all as Rotarians need to learn, is really how to talk to people in a non-threatening and in a way that, you know, builds bridges rather than fences. And so I think that that's something that Laurie Zuckerman is really an expert at. And she's been doing this in her own district. And so I've asked her if she would, you know, talk to us today a little bit about how she does that, you know, how she progresses with that. So the title of her talk is Producing Climate Action Through Presentations. And I did forward Laurie's bio to you all, but she is a third generation Rotarian, which I think is really impressive. And she's playing a huge role in ESRAG. She's our ESRAG North American Webinar Coordinator. She's the ESRAG Communications Creative Officer. And for us, she's our ESRAG Drawdown Climate Committee Co-Chair. So Laurie, I'll turn it over to you. And would you like for me to share the screen?
Here, I'll go ahead and share screen. Let me,
Okay.
Boy, when you introduce me like that, it's like, I don't think I know that person. Who is that person? So in your chat, there should be a document that says Producing Climate Action Worksheet. Nod your head if you have it and can open it. I'm looking down here to see, does just want to make sure you have that open. And if not, if you can't open it and also see the screen, then just a piece of paper and a pencil is good. That's all we need. Just, you're going to need to take notes. So put your thumbs up if you're able to do that, if you've got something to take notes or you have the handout open.
Yeah.
See, Doug, look at him doing his homework, Douglas there. Tobias, how are you? Do you have paper and stuff? Tim?
Yeah, I have, but I don't have the document because mine doesn't work.
Oh, okay. Paper and pencil. That's good. Brent, you good? Yep. No. Tim, you good? Peter?
Yep, okay.
Everybody good? Julie, you good?
Yeah, I can take notes.
We can see something, but
I have a question. Should we see your screen share and be able to see the document you're asking us to open simultaneously on the screen?
Well, some of us have two screens, and so you can have the document open. And if you don't worry about it. Print out that document later. Just use paper and pencil.
Okay.
Or pen.
Okay.
Yeah. So. All right. So.
Share screen.
We'll get started. I am just so humbled to be here because your team is amazing. And I don't even have all of the little icons up that you do, that the people in your team have done or touch. You are making a real difference, moving the Rotary family and the world forward to mitigate climate change and to restore our planet. You're phenomenal. So I just had to get that out there. So raise your hand if you like forests. Just put your hands up if you like forests. Cool. We're going to use the metaphor of ecological succession in a forest. Why? Because climate action is like the grasses and the bushes and the trees that we see in the forest. They don't just appear. There's a host of communication and networking going on underground to support that growth. So we want our presentations or, you know, any of the actions that, you know, activities we do, we want that to produce vibrant forest of climate action. And we do that by helping individuals and groups take their next step for positive climate action, creating their forest, whether they're able to call it climate action or not. And keep in mind, I live in a very, very red state. And so the red, when I say that, I mean very, very conservative state. So whether people are able to call it climate action or not, who cares? Let's just encourage them to do the right thing, which is easy through drawdown. Even if it's only to stop obstructing positive climate action. For example, you and I, with all our connections to each other and other like-minded people, are ready to take drastic actions to stop climate change right now. We're in the climax community stage. Okay, however, some people may be living in the barren landscape stage and may be unable to even hear the words climate change without being directing their fear and anger towards you and towards me. So I'm going to cover 7 steps that I use in my district. And I'd like you to fill out your reflections as we go through those steps. I'm a rookie at this, I really am. So I need you to critique this presentation. Tell me what I'm missing and what I should delete. Okay. In order for seeds to grow, they need just enough healthy air, water, temperatures, and soil, just enough. And so we need to be healthy to attract others to our message. So on your sheet of paper, or if you're able to print the document, list 2 or more self-care things that you're doing well. So wave at me when you've listed those 2 or more self-help things that self-care things that you're doing well. Okay, look, good. Looks like I got it done. Okay, now write down one thing, just one, that you'd like to improve for your self-care, and then wave at me.
Okay.
I'm ready.
Okay. I'm going to move forward. Keep in mind that a forest grows by creating an underground relationships via a network of fungi. For us, that means family and friends, our clubs, district, ESRAG, and community friendships. And for our clubs, the people in our clubs, our districts, it means finding opportunities to establish relationships like the pets, the president-elect training, and asking our district governor-elects and district governor nominees to present at those events and build relationships as the leadership is coming in. Start right there and then keep it going. It means understanding our tribe, our clubs, you know, our community needs and pressures. So how can our climate action goals support established district goals? Like, what are the goals for Interact, RILA, the foundation, membership? How can our environment goals, our climate actions, support their goals? And in seeking out mutual beneficial relationships, we need to be strategic. I want to give you a story. So in our district, a couple years back, a group of people were getting really excited about the Peace Rotary Action Group for Peace. So I invited them out to dinner, and we talked, and I said, well, you know, the environment, this is well before it became an area of focus. It was still very controversial in our district. I mean, you couldn't even say it. You could say earth stewardship. I said, but the environment is the foundation for all the other areas of focus to work. I mean, you can't have clean water if you don't have a good environment. And so, and then all of those things are necessary in order to have peace. And one of the people who was at that dinner, Janice Fulkerson, who was a area governor at the time, at every event that I've been with her since, where she's promoting peace, she always says, you need to have a healthy environment in order to have peace. And she goes through the cycle. And she ended up becoming our district governor nominee last year. Now she's district governor elect, and she is moving the whole district forward with that concept. So, you know, look for emerging movements within your districts and how you can dovetail on those. So in your Word doc, list 2 or more relationships that are going well. And one you'd like to improve. When you're done, if you could just give me a thumbs up or wave at me or something like that. 2. Okay, cool. Okay. The order of the next 2 steps is interchangeable. Sometimes we create presentations first, and then we go ask our district or our other communities, you know, we solicit it. Other times people come to us and ask us to present. So when creating presentations, I try to include pictures that highlight a group's positive actions, or we have a whole award system here. They're based in science. They're tailored to audience psychology and sociology. So, you know, we think about, okay, so who's our audience? Books like The Righteous Mind by Jonathan Haidt, it's old, but excellent. Transforming Apocalypse Fatigue by Per Espen Stoknes. Again, few years old, very good. And making sure our facts are supported by a relatable story. People don't, you know, tend to remember facts well, but they can stories. And using best presentation practices, including a clear through line. So TED Talks is a great resource as a book, or, you know, listen to it through the audio book. Include some kind of activity or interaction every at least 5 to 7 minutes in the process so that people can process the content. So polls, chat with your neighbor, jointly work on a document, something like that. The call to action needs to take people just one step beyond where they are and be engaging, something that's attractive and moving them, or framing it so it's attractive. And of course, testing your presentation with Toastmaster friends or someone else who knows your audience, and practice so that it simply flows from your mouth, and your emotional energy can be directed at connecting with your audience. And then always, 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 always having a backup plans. I know, at least when I present here, I'm in rural areas. And so it's not uncommon for the internet to go out. So for my activities, I've got a whiteboard, and I bring in my whiteboard and have, you know, someone come and do the activity on the whiteboard. Or, you know, we had one presentation where, you know, it wasn't that the whole power went out, but the speakers and the presentation camera, all of that went out. And so it's like, just had to give my presentation without slides. So always having those backup plans. So You're safe and can be calm. So this is just a quick example for the call to action. One of the things I'll do is list the topics that I covered in the presentation and have people vote on them. And then I'll send a screenshot of what people voted on back to the president and said, hey, I've got, XYZ presenters, and many of you in that room are the presenters that I'm sending out to people to present. And then, touching base with the president afterward, like, oh, were you able to get this presenter in, just to touch base? So in creating your presentation, what are a few things you're doing well? If you could write those down, those are your strengths. And what's one thing that you'd like to touch up on? And thumbs up or wave at me or something so I know you're done. Good. Okay. I'm going to move us on. And when making the request to present, again, that's interchangeable with creating the presentation. But, always in that request to present, always starting with praise. It's a great, I don't know if any of you are involved in Citizens Climate Lobby, but that's how we start it when we talk to legislators, to start with praise, one good thing, and tailor the quest around the club's real felt needs. I know in our district, when COVID hit and people couldn't meet face-to-face, using Zoom, there was like huge resistance there. And so what I did is I said, hey, I know your club isn't making the money that you would normally make for your foundation goals. So tell you what, I'll donate the money that I would spend driving to your club towards your foundation goal. And, people really like that. It helps. So, and also if you have any awards or anything, any perks that kind of motivate people. I'm a mom, manipulation is okay, bribery works, and snappy titles always help. Your request should include your through line in a way that's inviting and builds curiosity and anticipation. Of course, at the same time, needs to be simple and clear. And I'm sure you guys all know this, to be prepared to follow up again, and again, because people are busy. And then, of course, remember the week before the presentation to confirm logistics and details. And so write down 2 things that you're doing really well right now. And then just one action that you'd like to improve, and then thumbs up when you're done with that. Oh, good, good, good. Okay. And post-presentation follow-up. Handwritten thank you notes are great. I mean, it sounds like a lot of work, but I'm sure you've gone, well, I hope you have gone to club meetings where the president brings out a thank you note that someone wrote to the president after the meeting, thanking them for the opportunity to present. It's always, it's delightful because it reiterates the content. I mean, just the fact that you say this person who did that was talking to the club, it reminds them of that, hopefully call to action, and it creates a tighter relationship with the person. So handwritten thank you notes are wonderful. Email thank you notes are also great, because with that thank you note and putting down some concrete things that are unique to that club that shows why they're so wonderful, starting with that, but also including links to more information about your presentation, maybe screenshots of any polls that you did, and requesting the presidents forward or share your email with club members. Again, that reiterates that call to action in that information. Consider following up with members who will promote your call to action. And keep in contact with the key people in your audience, both personally or with action opportunities. I gave a presentation 3 weeks ago, and the president said, I just hate it when I get an email from you because I know you're going to be asking me to do something. And I'm like, oh, shoot. I need to contact this person more often with just, hi, how you doing? What'd you have for dinner? Not like, oh, gosh, it's Laurie again, So, and then, getting some echo there. Oh, thank you. So there's that follow-up, and then reflect on what you did, like I just did about the president who said, I hate it when you email me. And then repeat, rinse and repeat. So on your post-presentation follow-up, what are some things that you're doing well already? And what's one thing you'd like to do in the future or strengthen? Okay, and then thumbs up when you're past that. Got 1, 2, a couple thumbs up, heads up. Okay, cool. Great. Well, if you could look at your lists right now, and if you could underline all the things that you're most proud of, that you're doing right now, that even star them, underline them, star them, celebrate yourself. And then circle one thing that you want to take some action on. We're done. Doug, take over the meeting.
Well, thank you. Does anyone have some questions, comments they'd like to ask Laurie about? How should we start the discussion about how we can actually bring these techniques that Laurie's talking to us about into our own clubs?
First of all, Laurie, a great presentation. We kind of discovered these things as we went along, presenting our cleaner stoves thing across Canada. And we would often, at least I would, research a club beforehand to see what their international projects were. And you start by praising what the club is doing. And that, personally makes a difference too, to engage the club to start.
Yeah, yeah. It's cool. Yeah. Yes.
And I'm wondering, how is the best way Laurie, to request feedback on your presentation from the club to get some really honest kind of
Honest feedback.
honest feedback? Or is there any way to do that other than maybe from a member who happens to be, someone that you know?
The way I do it is I talk with the presidents. And I also, I mean, that's what I do. I talk to them. I have
Okay.
members that I talk to. Yeah, where it gets really tricky is there's this one area of the state, actually two, where they are really, oh gosh, I don't even know what the word I'd want to use. Reluctant, angry.
Mhm.
And it's just doing exactly what Douglas said. It's just like building that positive, finding the positive, building on it. But yeah, just those relationships. How do the rest of you do it? How do the rest of you do feedback?
Did you present that to your club or your
Yes.
district?
Okay, so to the clubs in our district. To the
Both.
clubs in our district. Yeah, so every year, for the past 3 years, the first year I wasn't as good at it. The second year was very good. And this year again, I present to as many of the clubs as I can get in. So, there are 45 clubs and I'll get into 40 of them, maybe 38.
I think it's almost impossible to present that to my club. First, I don't know really the technique of what you present, but the reception will be, I think, quite bad. Yeah.
Let's talk about
Sadly,
that
but it is.
offline. Yeah, let's talk about that offline. Are they just anti-climate?
Well, maybe for many of them, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, welcome to Idaho.
Well,
One of the things we found in our district 7020, which is predominantly Afro-Caribbean in the makeup, in terms of talking about a plant-rich diet, we've found, and diabetes is a huge issue here, and it's one of the main areas in our district that the district is really focusing on diabetes prevention and education, et cetera. And so rather than approaching people in our clubs and districts from a point of view of a plant-rich diet, is saving the environment, or all of the negative aspects that an animal agriculture environment, or diet has on the environment. If we found that if we approach them with the healthful benefits of a plant-rich diet, and because there have been hundreds of issues of people reversing their diabetes in as short as 3 weeks on just a plant-based diet. So that we found is one way of getting really good traction with people, is talking about the health benefits of your diet rather than the negative environmental impacts of it.
Well, and yes, and I want to dovetail on that. Yeah, I know here in Idaho, I don't lead with climate change. I'll mention it, but what I'll talk about are the co-benefits. And so the current presentation that that I modify for each club talks about clean cook stoves. That's 1/3 of the presentation. And, it'll start off with the Rotary District or the Rotary International, talks about climate change, and I forget what the exact thing is, but look at all the different co-benefits. And then I launch into a story about people who did clean cook stoves and launched into their real lives and how having a clean cook stove affected their health, their nutrition, jobs, and just went through all of those, and education, because they didn't have to be out gathering wood, and made them through a Poll Everywhere activity. Then instead of focusing on climate change, we talked about they had to check off all the different benefits, the co-benefits of doing this thing that they don't really like. When they find out, it adds up to all of these other wonderful things. And so we do that with 3 different areas that they would be adverse to, and then find out, oh my gosh, this does, the key thing they want is economic development, is what we discovered. And they go through and check all these things and go, oh, healthy environment, this new area of focus, this leads to the key thing that I'm focused on.
It's great. Yeah.
I like both examples. What you were doing in Doug's case and Laurie's case is you're thinking about the audience, figuring out what they would like to hear about, and addressing that directly, in a sense, not addressing climate, but addressing their concerns directly, which opens up the conversation. And then as time goes on, you can migrate out of, what they're strictly interested in.
Laurie,
And I love it because people will come up to me very angrily. I remember this one presentation in particular where it was an audience face to face. And he was, first question, I don't believe in climate change. So none of this stuff relates to me. Like, I don't care personally, because all of these other benefits, those are things that you do care about. And that's why Rotary is doing this, because we as Rotarians, we're not going to get caught up in political battles. We're going to work on doing the actions that make our world more livable. And that's what you do, because you care about those positive actions.
Laurie, I came in late. Sorry, I didn't really hear most of your presentation. The first thing when you said Idaho, the first thing that came to my mind was potatoes. And you just mentioned economic development, and you must be speaking to groups who are farmers, and that's a natural. The plant-based diet, the economy, the rivers, the water out there, all that stuff should be, if that's a tie-in to those guys, it should be.
No, you said no, we're ranchers. We like our livestock. Come on, a cow eats lots of greens. That's how you get your leafy greens, by eating the cow that eats the greens. I'm serious. No, we are cattle. And yes, I have to work on that, but.
So you're saying they don't grow potatoes in Idaho?
We grow potatoes, but we would never think of it as one of those hippy dippy plant-rich diet things.
Okay.
But you must be experiencing drought right now, and that's affecting the cattle as well as the potatoes, Laurie.
Oh yeah. And we have an experimental station in Burley that works with the dairy industry, and we're trying to help our dairy association understand that by, they're just small tweaks that we can make to get more carbon in the soil that will help make our crops better. We're working on it. We are working on it.
I love the example that I've shared with Laurie of the Swedish dairy farmer who switched from cows to growing oats and producing oat milk. So that, I think this is one of the things that we in our task force, particularly relating to solutions, you just can't go out there and say, okay, everybody's going to stop eating meat. So, all these guys, all these ranchers are just out of luck. There's a huge economic component that works with that. And so I think whether they'll be receptive to the alternatives or not, I think we need to provide those alternatives that are working. And that if we can, we're doing some research now on this dairy, dairy farmers switching to oat milk. And what if you could show that oats were easier to grow than cows and that they were more profitable? Then you might have dairy farmers beginning to look at, say, hey, maybe I ought to check this out. Initially, and the other thing that I see that happens with people is they go through stages of acceptance. They basically, whether they admit it or not, they can understand that you're speaking the truth, but they don't want to accept it. And so the first stage is denial. And then, so that's all right. If you just keep at it in a very, very low key, but just keep putting this information and these facts in front of people, sooner or later, some of it may sink into some of these people, particularly if you can find viable alternatives like the, retraining coal miners to become renewable energy as solar panel installers and things like that. So that these are things that I think that we really have to work on in our task force and be able to present viable alternatives for these climate change issues that are causing huge economic disruption.
Mhm.
Laurie, we use the gimmick of an electric car for $300 for our cleaner cook stoves. And everybody relates to an automobile and they don't want to give it up. So, if you can get an electric car for $300, that sort of brought people into an engagement setting as well with our talks.
As I'm going around the district, the cleaner cook stoves they really like that example. They really hang on to it. So I will be going back around in a couple months and hitting those clubs and saying, hey, don't you want Douglas or Maya to come speak to your club? So keep your fingers crossed.
Yeah.
A question, Laurie. In your presentation, I have saw a line of environmental justice. What is the meaning of that sentence in your presentation? Environmental justice.
Oh, in the presentation that I just gave today?
Yeah. What do you mean by that?
I'm not sure where it is. I'll have to go back and see what the context is. But normally when I'm talking environmental justice, but I'm not sure this was the context in this presentation. Okay. But what I'm talking about is, have you ever noticed how the people who are getting hit the worst by climate change are the poor?
Mm-hmm.
The people who, at least in the States, the people who have the worst, who are pushed off into the most marginalized, awful land that has the most pollution, are always the poor, and they get hit the worst.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure if that's what it was in my presentation, but normally that's what I refer to.
Okay.
That is certainly also true for Africans, because they produce very little pollution compared to what we produce, but they suffer the consequences first.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I have to say, I'm really lucky, I think, because I don't have all that resistance here in England, not at all. But, so I sympathize with you.
I think it's fun. It's a challenge.
Yes.
Yeah.
Americans are slow learners. Europe has been around for centuries. America's only been around for a couple of 100 years.
But
So,
there's also a point interest, a very interesting point in the climate change. For a scientific point of view, all of us can see that the climate is changing, but in some countries like we are up in Canada, East Canada, where the winters are quite difficult. When you say to the person, well, the temperature will be higher, perfect. It is a fact. The winter will be more easier and the summer will be a little bit more hot. So where's the problem?
It's in the
For
swings.
many persons, when you ask and you talk about climate change, this is the reaction.
In Western Canada, though, it's not a little hotter in the summer, it's a lot hotter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
you guys have been hitting 100, over 100 degrees in Canada. This
40
summer,
degrees,
right?
yes.
Yeah,
Centigrade.
which is unheard of. And the other thing, Jean-Louis, is that that's melting ice. You know, the warmer it is up there, the more ice that melts. And the fact is that all of the major cities in the world were founded as seaports, and they're all going to be underwater.
Yeah.
So,
yes, but this is not the problem here in Canada. For Eastern Canada, because some cities will be affected, but most of the cities will not.
Well, you had a lot of floods in Quebec.
Yeah, you did.
Well,
a lot of floods over there.
Yeah,
I think it's
we do have
So-
some 10 years ago with the region of Saguenay for many reasons, not only with some precipitation, exceptional precipitation, but when you say the person, oh, well, we will manage that better than it was. So this is sadly the reaction of many persons.
Do you find that your forests, because of the warmer temperatures, are getting more infestations of insects and things like that?
Well, I don't know if there are some reports of that for that, but probably there are. Probably, yeah.
We've noticed some of that in the cities in southwestern Ontario. I don't know which bug it was, but that's been an issue here in London, where southern Ontario, and that's been an issue.
Gypsy moth infestation.
Yeah, gypsy moths.
Mm-hmm.
So Laurie, if I could just ask you a question here about the nature of a Rotary presentation. All of us have been in Rotary for a long time, and obviously we can't remember every presentation that we've ever heard. It's kind of a given.
Yeah.
20 minutes once a week. And okay, what's it going to be this week or next week? And we listen and it goes away. So I want to give you one example from a talk that was given to our club, not by me, by somebody else, who came in to talk about food waste. And the points were well made, and so that we all were definitely aware that food waste is a problem, that an enormous amount of food is wasted. And I noticed at the end of the meal that we had there that hardly anybody had finished the food on their plate. And so I made a comment to the fellow who served it about whether he had heard anything about food waste that we were talking about as he was serving. Well, he hadn't really, but he talked to the, I mentioned that maybe he could serve half the amount, which would be quite enough for a meal, frankly, at half the cost. Oh, no, he said that the chef wouldn't do that. So where do we go? I mean, that was one Monday presentation, one Rotary presentation, and it sticks in my mind as something that didn't sink in where it belongs. And so here's another one that is coming up, and that is that we're going to get a presentation on plant-rich diets. Those hamburgers are going to be served anyway, unless I make a special point of saying, look, this is the speaker, this is plant-rich diet. And I'll have to go in and speak to the cook. And I think it's a he, maybe he needs to talk first. He may not be well qualified to produce a plant-rich diet, a plant-rich meal that really fits the bill. He knows how to do a hamburger that is really big, and he knows how to do great potato chips. But beyond that, I don't know. I've never seen anything much else. Sometimes chicken, I suppose, but where do we go? Well, how do you deal with that?
Well, let me show you one thing. Let me grab it.
While she's grabbing that, here's a couple creative solutions. One is everybody at the table split portions, so order 5 meals instead of 10 meals for 10 people. Back to Laurie.
That would be a yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Tim.
And it's a constant in my own club. It's the constant drip from their complaining member going, I can't eat this. I'm sorry, mashed potatoes, mushy green beans, and a salad do not make for a lunch. And well, I'm not that nasty, but I say, there are people who don't eat meat for cultural reasons. And we need to be welcoming. Rotary's International, let's be welcoming. One of the things that we do in our district, at least, is we have these little Earth Stewardship Awards. I don't know if you can,
okay,
you guys can see it, but they have to earn, in order to get their certification, they need to do something in land and water. So it might be road cleanup, it could be whatever. But as you can see, the bottom, to get their LEAF certification, the bottom is food. So that's, you need to offer a plant-rich diet. And every year, the president-elects learn this, the presidents learn this, that's over and over again. Either like a plant-rich diet, they need to do something with food waste. There's a food component. And so that's just part of how they get certified.
That's a fabulous idea.
Yeah,
you need to write that up, Laurie, and share it with us.
yeah, thanks, Laurie.
That's really great.
Okay, so I will send you the proposal that we wrote 3 years ago. And when we talk about plant-rich diet, because so many of our people are related to the cattle industry or the dairy industry, we said, this is what your grandmother told you, your mother told you, your doctor told you, and I know you guys all have high blood pressure. I don't say that. But yeah.
And does that come from the district, or is that something that your club does, or how do you do that?
District.
From the district.
That's our, we call ourselves REST. The Rotary 5400, and well, it used to be Earth Stewardship. It's now Environmental Sustainability Team. So we're the REST team.
Great. I think that's fabulous. That's something that I think we should offer throughout, make that something that's available to all of all of the district environmental sustainability teams.
It's kind of fun on a district level, because then when you're going from club to club to club to club, every year you bring in the little banner, and which this would never pass the Rotary logo police. So you really can't do that. So
Right.
I'm just saying, you might, you could put in the new area of focus in there, and that would probably be okay.
Yeah.
But every year when you go into your clubs, they get a new pin. We make these little pins for them, and they have different levels of awards. And so we just start off the presentation with, this year you earned X number of awards, so you get this level.
So Laurie, is there a document or something that
Yes.
describes your certification? Can you mail that to me?
Yeah.
Yeah,
please.
I'll
Yeah.
give it to Doug, and he can mail it out to you.
Doug, you're dead on. We had to just try to blow this out to every district.
Yeah, that's fabulous. It really is. Absolutely.
But
It's a way of engaging people. That's the key. That's the key point.
I just don't know why.
Taking action. They're not just sitting there listening to a speaker. They're actually having to, comply with some kind of guidelines.
And your clubs are going to be, like Maya, your club's going to be so much more active than mine. So you just change the certification. Change the certification so it better fits your district.
Yeah, what they're very keen on is litter picking. So we're going to clean up part of the Thames, for instance.
Wow.
Impressive. I just don't know, Laurie, why you've been keeping this a secret.
Really?
You have such good ideas.
No, it was in ESRAG. It was in the ESRAG newsletter a couple years ago, year and a half ago.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think we need to bring it back again.
Ahead of its time.
I would say that following what Peter said about the tar plate, we can have a smaller plate, of course.
Yes.
And our club did have a real meeting last week, since 14 months, okay? The plate were about 40% smaller. We had about only 40% of the member, but the bill was 40% higher. Problem is solved. Sadly, but
they wanted to make the same amount of money, right?
So the hotel will find the money. They don't have it for a year, but the plate is smaller. And for my part, it was correct, but the bill was not.
So I think Rob got the time a little confused because he's logging on right now.
So Doug, do we have time to maybe just go around the circle? And I'm just curious, as a result of our chatting back and forth, are there any actions we're going to do personally or in our clubs as a result of all of us chatting? I know I, for one, my action item is to send you what we're doing with our LEAF program.
Yes.
And I'm really, there was one other area I went, oh, that was brilliant. I know I want to do more with clean cook stoves and really push that on our clubs. I mean, that's one of my takeaways.
Sure, we have time to go around. Absolutely. If people would like to comment.
Well, I would say, again, I came in late and we spoke to a number of clubs this past winter, but now I'm speaking to our club. Laurie, when you described the resistance to what you're doing from the ranchers and the dairy farmers, I think that any resistance I find here is minimal and compared to that. So what you're doing is making it better for me, making it easier for me, because you're facing a mountain and I'm facing a little hill. So I take that away from that. That is wonderful. And the other thing I just might mention about the clean cook stoves, if you have people there who are interested, they can certainly, and Doug and I would certainly, and Maya would be willing to work with them, and they can do what we're doing. They can get together and raise the money and sponsor some place in the world and do the project. They don't have to join our project because they could do it themselves and get all the people from that part of the country. So
yeah, good.
Yes, so for me, it was interesting to learn that you are actually inviting or asking to present. So what I have done so far is I have published article in the Rotary magazine, and then as and invited people to ask me to come. And on the from that, I have received many invitations to speak, but I have hardly ever approached the club asking them, would you like to have me? So I need to be a bit more outgoing, I think. And also, I think your follow-up was very, very good, very useful.
Maya, I'm going to share something. I'm going to do a quick share screen. Thank you. Let's see, share. This is my chart listing the clubs in our district and the presidents, where they meet, the day, the time, and then I just color code it, you know, if the date has been set, if I've already presented there, if I'm trying to still get a hold of them. And that includes the Interact and Rotaract clubs. And that's what I do. So, yeah.
That's impressive. Wow.
That's
really
great.
great.
You know, when we so that's great, Laurie, because when we did it, we just went to the web and found out the email and fired off something. And I would think that maybe got a third of the replies, and the other 2/3 didn't get any reply or anything, and they just went. But if I had something like you did, I could see that this was not followed up, and I could follow up. So I think that's great.
Anyone else?
Yes, I like your idea of going to pets and making an ESRAG point at pets. And then following up from that with a list, because you've got then all of the presidents, at least, maybe secretaries, you've got their names, you've got their clubs, you've got the dates they meet, and so on. Thank you.
Yeah.
As Maya said, I will offer this to my clubs in the near surrounding too. I have at least 7 clubs in the next surrounding, and I think it's up to me to raise awareness for the topic of ESRAG and for special themes.
And you're still awake, Tobias.
Yeah, it's 9 o'clock. It's okay. Yeah.
Brent, would you like to share your takeaway on this as your district ES chair?
Thank you for the invitation. I really got in tune with the environment when I was at the Hamburg conference a couple of years ago. And what struck me at that time was anytime I turned on the news, there was an environmental story all the time. It was front and center, and that was daily. And we do not have that. I turn on CNN here and they're talking about everything but. And so my focus, I think, is we need to have this as a front and center every single day to remind people that we're in a crisis, and somehow that's got to start, I think, locally and grow from there. We're fortunate in our own club to have Doug Thompson with the Stove Project. So, but the challenge with our club is, and I'm sure with most clubs, environment is such a huge issue, and it can go in so many different directions. And what do you focus on is the challenge within itself. And we took on the the notion of we were I think the first club in our district to declare a climate emergency, and so we're really focusing on trying to get away from fossil fuels and promoting that. We got the city of Stratford on board to declare a climate emergency, but now we need to hold their feet to the fire, and so that's where, and another side project where we tried to take on a ban of single-use plastic bags. So that's been now mandated federally by the end of 2021. So no more grocery bags in the grocery stores will be allowed in 2022. But what we're doing with the plastic bags now, a few of our Rotarians are crocheting the plastic bags. They're taking 80 to 100 plastic bags and turning them into reusable plastic bags for shopping bags. So right now we're collecting bags, but it's such a hard issue to focus on just one area. I mean, because there's so many different areas that can be done, but doing something's certainly better than doing nothing. So that's 2 cents.
Yeah.
There is a good way to harness the variety. So the UK chapter of ESRAG had, for instance, an initiative last year leading up to Christmas called an advent calendar. And every day there was another topic that was related to the environment. So it's like opening another window.
Mm.
So that may be an idea to, it doesn't need to be very deep, but an email with a little bit about a different topic, just very short. So people don't need more than 5 minutes. And that was sent out to clubs, and of course the clubs send it out to their members.
Yeah, well, and Laurie, I love your LEAF certification. I think that's something we could grow in our district and have that certification just to get other clubs engaged.
Brent, can I connect you, and Doug, and Tim, tell me what you think of this, with Ariel Miller, who does the ESRAG newsletter. I think the story of how your club worked with your city to declare a climate emergency would be inspirational.
Great. Yeah, absolutely.
Brent, I put my email in the chat. If you want to just email me, I'd really appreciate it, because I'd love to hook you up with her.
Great idea. Tim, you have something you want to share?
Thank you.
Yeah, well, first and foremost, I want to reverberate the certification piece. I think is, my big takeaway from this conversation today. I think we have a number of passionate people in ESRAG that are just chomping at the bit to impact things, but we also have a community of Rotarians that are kind of like, not very far down the path with regards to engaging on the climate topics in particular. So a certification thing of some sort that starts to press people into quote unquote service is a great way to start to get that engagement to happen. So first and foremost, I think my big takeaway is the certification thing. We got to get it going in our district. Second thing, Brent's comment about, there's so many things to do. I think you're dead on. Just pick something and do it. It doesn't really matter what you do. What you're trying to do is getting people to engage, and it doesn't really matter what they engage in. With that said, I will make a little pitch or an ad for En-ROADS. The En-ROADS workshops help you understand where the biggest impact is. And if you have any interest in that, or your district has an interest in it, I can hook you up with En-ROADS instructors and set up a workshop.
Yes, on En-ROADS. Sorry.
Absolutely. Jean-Louis, do you have?
Okay, for me, yeah.
Okay. Well, I think what struck me as being really useful that I haven't really done that much of is researching the clubs in the districts before you talk to them to find out what, I mean, I know what our personal district's goals are, but the other clubs and districts that we're talking to or presenting to, I think that that's a really great way of, number one, complimenting them, as you said, Laurie, and number two, using that as a segue, particularly if you can relate those to the other 6 areas of focus, because people can really relate to that. I mean, in terms of peace and health and all of any way that, whatever you're talking about can relate, and these all do relate, because as we know, for many years, Rotarians did environmental projects under the other areas of focus because they all do relate so much. So I think for me, the takeaway is learning more about the club before I present to it, and then relating their interest to the other areas of focus, and then back to the environment.
And a really easy trick to that, go to the club's Facebook page. And if they do keep a Facebook page, then you just scroll through the last year and take screenshots and put that on your opening page.
Oh, good idea.
Yeah.
Very fast, easy.
Great. Well, we're running a little over, but this has been a great presentation, Laurie, and really informative. I think we've all learned a lot, and thank you so much for your time and your leadership here. It's really wonderful.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for your work. You guys are awesome. You're inspiring.
All right.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Thank you all. Bye.